All right, what's going on, Rock Church people? We are in another podcast here, and today I have the privilege of having Nasreen Khan join me. I asked her, I've known Nasreen, when did we meet again?
I want to say, was it like 5 or 6 years ago?
Was it during my Divvy Dose days?
It was during your Divvy Dose days, yes. I was friends with some mutual friends of yours. They had a dinner, and out on their deck, and it was just...
Was it the New Year's Eve party, or was it before that?
Okay, so maybe there were two, because one was summer-ish, I remember, because we were outside, and I think it was the New Year's Eve party, actually. Yeah,
mutual friends, Divvy Dose. So that would have been 2015. So how many years ago? That's
9, pushing 9.
Pushing 9 years ago. 8 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Time flies.
But I remember then, and one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the podcast is you've always been one of those people, because what's your Enneagram? Are you an 8?
I'm an 8.
So 2 Enneagram 8s. 2 people that both have strong opinions always make fascinating conversation. And I remember talking to you at that party. I was like, we were just back and forth.
Yes.
But what's really cool and why I really wanted to have you on is you have recently converted to Christianity. But first, let's not dive into that yet. We're going to get there. Why don't you give a little bit of background information, what you do, who you are?
Like for a living?
Yeah, all of it.
So I'm an esthetician, which means I primarily provide skin treatments. I've owned 2 businesses. One of them was a partnership dispute, and I ended up 2 years ago building my own. And that has been probably a part of my journey as far as awakening me to some harsh realities that ultimately led me to Christ. But yeah, I'm a pretty simple girl these days. I love what I do for a living. It's challenging, but then on my off times, I just like to read, cook, and just lay low.
That's
and it
awesome.
works for me.
What is is it called a salon?
Spa.
Spa.
Yes.
Spa, sorry. I don't get to go because I'm bald and
Well, salons you don't go to, but spas you can come for sure. Yes.
Okay. Wrong. What was it called?
My new place,
Yeah.
Bespoke Beauty and Body.
Bespoke Beauty and Body.
Yes.
That's a plug. Check it out if you haven't. And you guys do what?
A lot of skin, massage, lash extensions. We do other things too, but primarily those are kind of like the 3 pillars. And within skin, we do everything from microneedling to custom facials to peels, plasma pen. Yeah.
And you guys are located where?
In the East Village, on the 2nd floor of 5 Star Salon.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I was thinking you were downtown Davenport this whole time.
I was.
That's why.
Yes, my
Your
previous company,
location.
The Vault, was downtown Davenport.
Awesome. And you're liking that location?
I do. You know, it was a very kind of spontaneous, abrupt change, but they have been so warm, and from the time that we moved in, it just felt right, and it feels like homey and cozy and safe and just, really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
You know, something you already said that I find fascinating, just about you and I, both Enneagram 8s, both the business world driving us to bottom. And I'll get more into that later, but it's fascinating. I've never put that parallel together. So let's start with, how did you grow up? What did you believe growing up?
Yeah. So I was born in California. My mom is from Bettendorf, Iowa. She was brought up Episcopalian, but you know, she kind of is like, I would say like a little counterculture, probably, again, searching for truth through Eastern modalities. I mean, she was a child of the 70s, right? And she converted in college to Islam on her own will.
So she wasn't raised Islam?
She was not raised Muslim at all. I mean, you guys look similar. She's like blonde hair, blue-eyed, German-Danish.
So I didn't know this. Your mom is the white
Yes.
parent. Okay.
Mom's the whitey.
Okay.
Mom is white. And she, through kind of a very typical method of marriage through Islamic tradition, met my dad kind of through correspondence and married him, and it wasn't a good marriage, but they divorced when I was still a baby. So I was raised solely by my mom.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a dad growing up?
Correct. Yeah. Which is a blessing. It's a blessing.
It's a blessing that he wasn't in your life.
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah. I could cry because it's like, when I think back to like, and I know we'll get into these things later, but like thinking back on my life, knowing now that God was always like working for me and on my behalf since since before I was born.
Yeah, you know, one of the biggest contributors to atheism is usually a bad experience with a father.
Yes.
And so it's fascinating that you have converted, and it just, we'll get more into that later, but I did not know that. Okay.
Yes.
So that marriage, I'm guessing, was just toxic and
really bad. And I don't know if it was culture or if he had his own demons, like figuratively, but also literally. But no, was not a good person. And I feel very lucky that she got full custody, because that's like not a thing.
Yeah.
Parents don't get full custody with no visitation rights, and that sounds really crazy to most, but knowing the circumstance, it is the best case scenario outcome for what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say that you felt a lack, though, although it was a good and a blessing in disguise, that he wasn't there? Has it been difficult growing up without a father?
Now I can look back and I can see what was missing as a child, and I think you might relate to this as like a dominant 8 personality type. I always saw it as like, this is a blessing, like this is great. I was so objective and rational and like intellectual about it that I think I was just always faced with like, the reality was this, so this is best case scenario for outcome. My mom didn't tell me that. That was just kind of how I always like saw things. But as an adult, you know, when you start looking back on your life and certain patterns, and you're like, how did I get here? You can kind of trace it back to some things probably from childhood that you're like, had I had a loving father, things would have been different. My father was not loving, does not know what love is not capable of that. So I suspect things would have turned out really bad had he been in the picture. But when you know what your heavenly Father is and who he is, and that is the prime example of what a father's love should be, of course I lacked a lot growing up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So your mother then raised you predominantly. She was everything.
Yes.
So, and how many siblings?
I'm one of 4.
Oh, wow. So she had 4 kids on her own.
Yes. Yes.
Man, and worked full time?
Worked full time, hustled, was scrappy. But, you know, was not ultra hands-on, because she couldn't be. I mean, she did a lot for us. Like, I think sometimes, how did you show up to our ball games and, like, make our Halloween costumes and stuff Valentine's? Like, she was a very like loving, like fun loving, whimsical, precious mom. She really was. Yes. But you know, there I think of like parents almost being leaders and discipling their children, and she wasn't able to be like our coach or mentor.
She was so busy trying to provide.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
4 kids.
Absolutely.
So did you have other parental figures in your life that helped raise you?
My grandma was like my safe haven.
Okay, so grandma was really, I was wondering.
Yeah. I loved going to grandma's house, and I also think maybe because I was one of 4, middle child, very typical middle child too, that I always like was drawn more to adults, and I think in looking back, probably I really craved having an adult safe leadership figure, and so I was always teacher's pet. I loved all of my teachers in elementary. I would find ways to skip out on recess and like ask to grade papers, and you know, I loved my teachers. So I would say like probably teachers and my grandma certainly were huge influences.
Right. That's cool. So let's get back a little bit to your mom converts to Islam.
Yes.
Now, how active of a role in the faith were you growing up?
Right. Well, my mom is a completely devout Muslim, still is.
Wow.
It is absolutely the center of her life and her whole world. Not nominally Muslim, highly practicing Muslim.
Wow, okay.
So, of course, like any good person of faith, you want to raise up children in the faith. And so we went to mosque on Saturdays growing up. Here's the thing. She had 4 kids. My younger 2 siblings are half because she got remarried.
Okay.
But she would take us to mosque. And so my brother and sister, baby brother and sister, didn't always go because sometimes they would be with their dad on weekends. But surely my mom, my older sister, and I would go. I'm not really a rule follower. And by about age 9, I really stopped wanting to go. So although I had plenty of exposure to it growing up, not plenty, but I had 5 years of exposure to it growing up, and it was part of how my mom set the standard of living in our household, standard of conduct. But yeah, about age 9 is when I kind of stopped.
So just so the people listening kind of get a picture, because when you think of Islam, most people are ignorant. We don't really know much about it. We know what we see in movies and whatnot. I've done a little bit more study than that in seminary, but so what did it look like? Like, this was the worldview your family lived from. Like, Allah was the God.
Yeah.
Were there daily prayers that you were doing every day? How often was it talked about?
Islam was talked about always. I mean, it was, you have to understand, my mom is a passive personality type.
Okay.
Not a rigid person. So it was constantly talked about because, like I said, it's really the cornerstone of her whole life. And she prayed 5 times a day and would want us to kind of join in. And, I never knew Arabic. But
excuse my ignorance, but like, put a rug down?
Put a rug down.
Okay.
No, do what's called wudu, where you do the ritual cleansing of certain parts of the body, and the 5 prayers a day.
Every day.
Every
so
day.
You grew up, this was your worldview. Because here's what's interesting. My brother-in-law is a converted Muslim. His parents are from Turkey. The one married my sister. And
converted to Christianity, from Islam?
Yeah, he's an elder of the church now.
No kidding.
Yeah. But what's interesting about him is his parents come to America before he was born, so he was born in the States. But a significantly more nominal, secular, right? Still important, still basically almost disowned him when he converted.
Yeah.
But not what I'm hearing from you. Like, your mom was in it. Like,
oh yeah, and what's so funny is, like, she's like the only white at the time, the only white lady of a bunch of like newly emigrated people at the mosque, and yet she incredibly devout, and really tried to merge with some of the things that you may consider to be cultural, but they're not. There's really, like, she really wanted to do everything by the book. Truly, she is a woman after God's heart. She really is. Yeah. So we were definitely not nominally Muslim. I know what you mean, where there are certain parts, like, there are just certain, even just countries on the whole, that, like, we would know growing up, like, oh, they're just nominally Muslim, they don't practice. Like, I hate
there's a lot of Christians like that too. So
totally. And I hate this language, but hearing, and I'm not saying my mom said this, but hearing this narrative, in the periphery growing up, like, they're not a real Muslim. Of course, like you said, we see that in Christianity. Oh, they're not really a Christian. I don't like that language, but I understand what they meant by that.
Yeah.
But no, my mom is not nominal. She is very practicing, very devout.
Right. So did that roll over into her being strict on you about rules?
Totally.
Okay. So you grew up with a legalistic framework.
That's the best way to describe it. It was completely legalistic. Gosh, it's so hard. My mom is such a complex individual because she is probably the only Muslim I've ever known who is incredibly legalistic, but also understands big picture at the same time of, like, don't be bogged down by the details. Don't be bogged down by this, like, she's not fear-based in the way that she talks about it, but yet lives by a very legalistic framework. So yes, legalism was the framework that I was brought up with in terms of scripture and what our belief in God is and who or what God is
yeah.
dictator.
Which is fascinating because we know scripturally legalism can also drive our sinfulness, right? And especially as an Enneagram 8, right? The insatiability, right? Like it drives, I have to be really careful myself. Like legalism, if it creeps in, just breeds more sin, right? If I don't live in the freedom and the grace of God. So.
Amen.
Right. I'm sure it felt heavy growing up under that weight.
Yeah, and like I said, I think at a very young age, I mean, I found journals when I was like moving finally at age 30, all of my stuff out of my mom's house, like, get your stuff out of my basement. I found a journal from when I was 11 years old, lamenting and kind of, you could see how tortured I was by my disbelief. Because when you grow up told that this is truth, this is it, you know, it's, even though you may say, I don't fully buy it, that's still somewhat ingrained in your subconscious. And so I felt in my bones and in my spirit when I would be at the mosque that this is not right. And I'm trying to reconcile what like a deep knowing, but also with what is being told and the fear of hell. Oh my gosh, you talk about Catholic guilt. I see your Catholic guilt. I will raise you Islamic guilt.
I've heard that about Islam.
So that's really like it's in your nerves and in your bones. But I had always felt that this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, and a lot of it was having this like very adult thoughts at a young age. Always experiencing what what the equivalent of a sermon would be in Islam. And the ways that the people were, and I would see just the rigidity and the personalities of people I was around at the time, and they were constantly in this state of like never-ending fear, fight or flight, like just, it didn't feel right. That didn't look to me like what the fruits of following God should be. And I also feel, and I would say to my mom as early as age 8, 9, like, I have no desire to pray. It feels like I'm going through the motions. Like, I don't even speak Arabic. I don't even know what I'm saying. And like, God knows my heart. I feel like a fraud. Like, I actually feel like I'm a liar. And I feel like it's a worse sin to lie to God than it is to like not prostrate five times a day. I felt this as early as I could remember. But it's still hard to reconcile that because you feel like a sinner and you feel like your fate is sealed and you are just going to burn in hell.
So,
and
you felt that from a young age?
As early as I can remember.
Man.
As early as I can remember.
From my biblical framework, it just sounds like to me like you were one of God's from the beginning.
Yeah, like, and that's why I cry, like, whew, I'm so sorry. Ask my therapist. I try to cry all the time. I can't cry, but like when I feel so touched by his grace, like I lose it because 20 years of closer to 30 years of trying, like climbing, scratching, and clawing my way to uncover truth and feeling like it's just not in the cards for me and genuinely believing that there is a God, but like I don't know who he is, and thinking that, well, I believe he's the ultimate decider and he picks and chooses some and I'm just not chosen. And I have to be okay with that. But looking back, seeing the whole picture now, like knowing that I was his all along, like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. See, when I hear you say that you felt you don't deserve this, I deserve hell, I feel my sin, that is all just conviction of the Spirit. I mean, because without Christ, that's completely true, right?
Totally.
It's like you've just been his since you were a little kid, and that's amazing and a beautiful story.
It's amazing. I'll be honest though, it's like I said, it was many, I think, let's say age 5 is when I started contemplating these things. I mean, this was 32 years in the making. I was really, when I got over, I would say I probably stopped going to the mosque around age like 10, 11. There was still familial pressure. I didn't I certainly didn't make my mom look good. She didn't have me in line. The imam or the, one of the elders of the mosque even called me on a Saturday. They were all at the mosque, and he called me and was like, "I'll expect to see you tomorrow for Sunday school, right?" And I was like, click, and I just never showed up. And I wanted to be autonomous and be authentic, and I was less pressured by, I was a really good kid, but I wasn't like, you do what authority tells you to do.
Yeah.
I was inherently just a good kid, but
Yeah.
Later on, I think through probably, passive aggressive language, or like feeling the weight of the familial rejection, and also reconciling the lack of God in my life, and feeling like I don't know who he is, but I still had the Islamic version of a God in my mind. It made me really angry, and it made me really rebellious. I think I wanted it so bad, and because I couldn't make sense of things, I didn't have any wisdom. I was trying to just make sense of everything on my own. It made me really resentful of God, really resentful of God, to the point that I thought that people who had religion were somehow less intellectual, less evolved. Of course, typical like Western college age philosophical mind. Like,
what every 22-year-old thinks when they graduate college.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the self-preservation piece of it, where like, I can't fully admit that I'm like just not chosen, so like I'll just posture and be like, whatever, like I don't need you, like I do this on my own. But I never lost sight of the fact that like it is very possible that there's a creator. I know there's something, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move into then, because we're getting there.
Yeah.
But so that's your childhood.
Yeah.
Now move into, adult years.
The rebellion.
What that looked like, and then kind of how that led into.
So I was rebellious, like, and it was more rebellion against my family of origin, fully. Religion makes you very binary. There's a single right way of existing, and if you're not that, like, then you're doing it wrong.
Right.
That was very much a very subtle but narrative in my household, and I rebelled, and I partied a lot, and I found different friend groups, and I would say like probably for 10 years I was just kind of lost. Not like a wilderness, but like I was just
party world, that whole scene.
Totally of the world.
And that's like 20 to 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. 20 to 30 for sure. And I did still feel conviction. Like, I don't feel that this is right, but like, what am I going to do about it? But I very much bought into like what the world teaches you, that like, no, in order to evolve and come home to yourself, you need to party. You need to like have boyfriends and like experiment, and like, I mean, even the sexual revolution, postmodern feminism, it teaches us all sorts of things that feel like truths until you live them and you realize, what a deception. This ain't it. Nothing fruitful came of it. And so I was always a truth seeker. I never was just content in, I would go down so many different trails of truth, whether it was science or physics or popular psychology, and I would say a lot of it was like what I would categorize as like new age teachings about God or force or source.
The energy.
Highest self.
I have to bring you back a little bit, something you said, flesh out, because I think it's super important. But you said sexual revolution and just modern day feminism. Like, what did that look like practically for you living that out? What do you mean?
Well, by default, my mom was a feminist for sure. And I think out of necessity, she was a feminist because she had to be. And I think that with what I saw in multiple failed marriages of hers and how she just had to do it all on her own, I just told myself at a very young age, do it on your own.
Yeah.
Men are the enemy. Do it on your own. So my entire objective in life was to become a self-sufficient, self-sustaining woman. So I never like thought that having a partner was of essence. Strangely enough, if I'm honest with you, I came to the realization close to 30 that my heart's deepest desire is to have a supportive, loyal, loving partner that doesn't betray you. But I just said, like, maybe I can't have that. So I just hustled harder, just made myself more independent, tried to push away the need. But what that is it's really the natural order. It's what we're designed for. So I bought into the lie of postmodern feminism, and I was told, like, you are only of value if you get some kind of education and you become self-sufficient in the workplace. It's a little bit of like, it's kind of an ick thing if you're just a woman who raises a family. That's really what my belief system was, that somehow, like, you are less than, you are less evolved, you're weak. Weakness was a huge thing. And isn't it ironic that in my quest to become invulnerable, I found myself time and time again in situations that were more vulnerable than really anybody around me. How do you like them apples?
No, that's so good. I see this all the time.
Yeah.
Just women. It's funny, 2 years ago on my Facebook, I don't know if you would have seen this or not, I put up a post and I said, hey, if you decide to stay home and raise a family, you are not less valuable than the woman that goes and gets a job. Listen, my whole point of that post was to say, hey, encourage the stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
To not feel it. That was the whole point. I got destroyed.
Shocking.
I mean, my comment section was over 100 comments. People reposting it saying how hateful I was because they felt like, and here's what I decided that it was. There is so much guilt in the world from mothers that either they have to work, they choose to work. You know, listen, sometimes that's not they have to.
Yep.
I understand that. There's grace for that, 100%. But man, there are so many women that are riddled with guilt because I do believe in the deep down recesses of their heart, they want to be home.
Yes. And you have to lie to yourself. You have to do mental gymnastics to be okay with the situation that you're in, or to rationalize if you feel like I don't really have a choice. You will tell yourself all sorts of lies. Denial is such a powerful and useful tool to, like, help us be okay with the decisions we've made, but you are spot on. And I will say something that I have believed, and it's never not been validated. I actually have always said in life that, okay, we have these decisions like running a business. Do we do the morally right thing or do we do the economically sound thing? I actually have always believed it's one and the same. Science or morality, I think they're one and the same. Yeah. Give it a minute, it'll prove itself to be the same. And we're finding all this evidence nowadays of, like, we're talking longitudinal studies have been done now of what's happening to, we've got 3 or 4 generations now of children, now adults, who were raised by moms when they stayed home versus moms that went into the workforce. And I am not shaming anybody, but I'm just saying that, like, the lie that somehow women are less valuable or that there's not a need for both moms and dads, we're finding out with evidence now that that's simply not true. It's so funny how everything I've read in scripture, it's like, yeah, it's literally validated by every study now. Just saying. Ooh.
I've been saying this for years, and people, it's funny. I still have close buddies. We share buddies that think I'm the dumbest person on the planet. And it's really hard when your eyes are opened.
It's so hard.
Right? When your eyes are opened, you're like, oh, wait, everything I thought, all my preconceived ideas, all my presuppositions, what I thought about Christianity, that's part of the problem. People think they understand it. Because we live in a context of people talking about Jesus, but the depth of him is significantly more than they realize. Yeah. Oh, that's good. So that's the feminism worldview that you grew up in, strong mom. You mentioned the sexual revolution. What did you mean by that?
So I think, the world, the society will tell you all sorts of things that are good for you that are just absolutely sinful. And so we're socialized to believe that things are really positive or will yield positive outcomes. you know, I got over my belief that like, if you have sex before marriage, you're going to go to hell. Like I really deconstructed and separated myself from all Islamic beliefs. And so, you know, I wasn't promiscuous, but you know, I had boyfriends, and I just thought that sex is like a healthy part of any relationship. And I think that honestly, sex clouded my judgment. First of all, it forms bonds. It just does. And if I'm really honest, and here's the thing, I'm okay being wrong. I'm really okay with saying totally I had it wrong. Yeah. I'm not okay with living in a lie. So I can admit to myself that I probably stayed in relationships longer because I had given that part of myself, and like I had to get a return on my investment.
Makes you feel trapped, yeah.
Yeah, or it clouds your judgment. Like I think that, and women don't admit this. Like we are taught that like, no, we are sexually free. We can have sex like men. First of all, I don't think that men can have sex like men without emotions. I think that maybe men from a younger age learn to sever parts of themselves off from God, or maybe they're socialized to do things that are totally sinful and so far from grace. But maybe as women, we are socialized to do it more slowly. But the sexual revolution, I think, taught us to cut off like our God-given holiness, and we are taught that there are merits to it. And this is the hill that I will die on. You cannot mess with God's natural order and expect anything good to come from it. Because did it give me experience? Sure, but it ultimately like led me to a place of feeling like so empty and like I wish I had it all back, or even feeling like I wonder like if I would not have done that, would I have gotten a ring? I wonder if I would have kept some sanctity to sex. Would there have been different outcomes? Would I have been more selective? Would I have weeded out the bad ones? Yeah. The answer, I believe, is yes. So this is weird. Like I don't even know if I've told anybody this, but when I experienced Jesus tangibly, I had already, like months before that, I was contemplating all these things. I was in a really bad relationship, and I told myself, if it doesn't work out with this person, which it never would have, I think that I want to be celibate till marriage. Because I think that like bonding over sex or, you know, intimacy, it was never like a carnal thing for me. It was always like for closeness and bonding. But I felt like if I had never given that to that person, would I feel so attached to them? I believe in soul ties, and I don't think they're a good thing. So I've taken a vow of celibacy, and it's not, there's like no question about it, because I just think like it has nothing to do with like, oh, the Bible tells me it's sinful and like I don't want to go to hell. It's literally like I see the merits of it now.
You see the beauty in God's order.
I see the perfection and beauty in God's order. Well said. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so let's go then let's go to the conversions experience. Like, where were you at?
Yes.
I know there was a couple years of wrestling.
Yes, many years of wrestling. Like, I hate labels, but if people would ask me, I would be like, I'm probably agnostic. I had to give up the climb and the struggling to try to figure God out. I made a deal with God when I was about 27. I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of myself. Okay, God, here's the thing. If you exist, I have enough faith at least that you will figure out a way to make yourself clear to me. And I don't need to like toil anymore. That was when I was 27. So that was 10 years before my encounter. But over the last 5 years, my heart began changing. It's what conviction is. I just started seeing, I think part of it was I was seeing a lot of evil. I was seeing things that the only thing I could explain it as is, this is evil. This is not right. Like people in my life that were doing things that are not, no human being are capable of doing. you can't have a conscience, you can't have empathy, you can't be of the things that I know make us human in God's image. I was experiencing evil. I was seeing the world become more evil, things that you can't explain. And I also had a few, this is heavy, but like I had a few demonic attacks. And it was such so that I was not going to try to intellectualize it or explain it away. I knew what I experienced as a completely secular person. I knew what I had experienced. So it's a combination of many things over.
Time out, so
yeah.
because that's
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Can we get into that a little bit?
We can't. I'm like, I don't know if the world's ready, but like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I know
what do you mean by
was.
demonic attacks?
It happened probably close to like 5 times. One of them, I'll probably go off the record and share that one, but where I was in a deep sleep and then all of a sudden I awoken and I could feel a presence, literally like a presence, and it had a heat to it. It had, you know, like my spidey senses were tingling, and yet I could feel it breathing on me, and yet I knew inherently, don't open your eyes. And that being, principality, would either push me down by like my chest and my throat, like deep into my bed, and it would last anywhere from, it felt longer, but I'm sure 5 to 8 seconds, and scream so loudly.
Wow.
And what I find ironic, though, this is even 8, 9 years ago, probably the first one happened. Tell me why I knew, and I knew I was awake. I knew to keep my eyes closed and say the name of Jesus.
Really? In that moment,
intuitively, it was intuitive. It was, I just knew, keep your eyes closed and just say the name of Jesus.
Wow. And you're one of his.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't like ready. I mean, like I still wasn't ready.
God was still working.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had those experiences.
Yeah, but I'm filing them all away. I'm filing it all away. And the deeper I went into like I said, maybe New Age-ish, Buddhism, like those kinds of wisdom traditions.
So you were, I mean, can we just say that you were dabbling in some what we would consider now demonic activity?
Like the simple fact that I would like believe in law of attraction. Yeah, I think that anything that's not Jesus is as well intended as it is. I believe now that it is. It's either a counterfeit or it's full on witchcraft.
There's that whole theory. I actually did a podcast on this.
Yeah.
That there is no neutral ground.
Totally.
So right, it's either God's or the enemy's.
100%.
And we like to think that like, oh, you know, this is okay, this is pretty good, but really we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities, right? So yeah, there is no neutral ground. So I would say, yeah, you were dabbling in some new agey, but I think God was using it. So keep going.
Yes, that's the thing is like, I can't even say I regret it. It was like, I understand why I'm here now. But so those, you know, demonic attacks happened. And my sister was a Christian, by the way. She had a...
And this is your older sister? Okay.
Who was also, it's like, I don't want to speak for her, but she was a very devout, zealous, you know, very by the book Muslim. And she had an encounter that changed her life in grad school while she was trying to convert one of her Christian friends from the Bible Belt to Islam. Wow. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, she wanted to have a battle of the wits. You know, most Muslims, they love apologetics, but they're actually terrible debaters. They're really they're like I liken them to media. They're really good at talking points, but so she was going to do the whole like Muslim apologetics because they just tell you, you know, that the Islamic book is the only like unadulterated book. It's the only one that's been preserved. Like that's the narrative at least. So she had her own encounter. So she was a Christian for many years, and she was on fire for Jesus. She still is. She wanted nothing more than to get me to join in, but I don't do well to being controlled or pushed. So we kind of separated a bit. But when these attacks happened, I called her and I was like, I need to tell you what happened. And I just thought it was odd about that. And she, obviously had been, I'm sure, praying for me for years, which I feel so grateful for now. But so a lot of things were happening. I was amassing knowledge, always trying to find absolute truth. And there are a lot of things in Buddhism. I mean, anything, Confucius, Rumi, all of these things, like, they have these things, and I could feel something in my spirit was changing. It was getting me closer to truth, but the one hang-up that they all have in common is that they're completely focused on the self. I was all about becoming my best self, my most truthful self, most authentic. I want to uncover the truth about this world. And yes, it did help me grow. In conjunction with therapy, absolutely it helped me grow. But it ultimately led me to a place that I still didn't have peace fully. I didn't have answers. It was still very up here in my head. It still wasn't in my heart. But I think I experienced a lot of really challenging things. Again, a lot of evil, those attacks. I also had friends that were living in Christ, and I saw the fruits, and I wanted it. So I would call myself the last 3 years Christ curious.
Okay. So you started like kind of looking at some stuff, reading some stuff, watching some stuff.
Actually, not even.
No, not even that? Not
even. It was more like the deeper I went into like law of attraction, or like, how would you qualify that? Like, I know it's.
Yeah, I don't know. You're talking language. I don't really know.
I know, it's like good. But like all the stuff that like, you can think it into existence and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, that whole thing. Yeah, you can like manifest.
Manifesting.
Yes, all that. I mean, I think there are some biblical principles.
Well, they're a counterfeit, but you're right. A lot of biblical
in all of these, right, worldly things, that you're always going to land on partial truths.
Amen.
And so, law of attraction, I'm guessing what you mean is manifesting by believing and thinking and speaking.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
Which gives us the sovereignty and us the power.
Right. It's very expressive, individualistic.
Truly.
Which is what the whole world's driven by, right? It's all about me, myself, finding my true self.
Truly.
I'm the center of the universe.
Yes. Yeah. And as a person that, was self-empowered, and like, I don't try to make excuses for myself. I own my stuff. It resonated. But I was Christ curious, because as I would like hear, chatter about like the personality of Jesus, I'd be like, wow, that actually sounds like he's the optimal person. Like he really sounds like he's kind of the model of what we're supposed to be. Yeah. But I had never picked up a Bible. I was gifted them over the years. I never picked up the Bible. But my conversion story, I don't know if you're ready to go into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Again, I'm leaving a ton of details up, but again, I have a file folder in the back of my mind, and all these little instances, I'm filing it away. Little nuggets of truth, I'm filing away.
Can I, before you go there,
yeah,
I can say I did have a little bit of experience with you when you and I don't remember, but at the party that we met, we talked out on the porch for quite a while.
Yep.
And I don't know if you were Christ curious at that point, but you were definitely asking some pretty poignant questions about my beliefs, blah, blah, blah.
Oof. Sorry if I probably was so rude.
No, I loved it. If you know me, I'm like, let's do this, right? But I remember even then, you were like, I really enjoyed to talk to, because you were very curious.
Very curious.
And I was probably trying to persuade you at the time. If I know me, I'm trying to, to convert you.
But you know what? I think I didn't feel that way. I felt like you were so not forceful or like trying to advance an agenda. It didn't feel that way. It felt that you were just very frank and honest. I didn't feel like I was being recruited, because I have a kind of a sixth sense for that. Yeah. No, I really enjoyed it, and it got me very curious. And I always have remembered that as I've kind of watched you from the sidelines. Again, those are in my file folder. I'm seeing like, I want what that guy has. I don't know about this Jesus guy, but I want what that guy has. Like, yeah. So again, it was 30 plus years in the making. But I always wanted truth. Truth to me felt safe, and I believe that there's an objective truth.
Yeah.
I do, and I always have. And the deeper I went into like, again, you know, I'll just say how ironic is it that we're all, like many of us, some people don't care. Like they're asleep and they don't care. They don't care. Other people, like they want to know, they want truth. They're seeking after something, but in all the wrong places, as was I. It's so funny that the world is so willing to look for it everywhere except for with Jesus. It's like a four-letter word to this modern world.
I mean, yeah, over-familiarity breeds contempt, and it's definitely true in our country.
It's so true. So, you know, I would like ask people, like I had a couple of friends that were, you know, really progressive pastors, and I would ask them, like, tell me about Jesus. And they would say, like, yeah, like, I don't really know, like, how much all of what is in the Bible is true. But, like, Jesus is like Jesus is my homeboy. Like, you know, he's just like the best guy. Like, he's kind of, I don't even know if like it's really true that he existed, but at least the character of him is who we should all aspire to be.
Wow.
I mean, like, so blasphemous, right? Like,
Wow.
my heart hurts so bad now. But I was like, I'm kind of curious about him. So, but again, I wasn't motivated enough to pick up a Bible because as a secular humanist, ex-Muslim, that's a pretty big jump. Like, you know, some things are ingrained. Like, if you're a Muslim, you know, beer, bacon, Christmas, Jesus, and Jews are like a no-no. You just know that. You just know that.
That's funny. That little statement teaches me more about that worldview, which there's some assumptions that I did think, right? But that's funny that you had that thought.
I'm going to get canceled, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. That's fine.
Welcome to the club.
I was going to say, I've been trying to go about this without getting canceled, but I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it. It's fine. It's the truth.
Amen.
Yeah.
Listen, the world needs you. The world needs a woman that is as strong as you are, that's went through what you've went through, that's well-spoken, that's intelligent, that's researched this. I mean, man.
I've exhausted. When I say, I think I exhaust people. I exhaust myself. I exhausted years and years, and I stopped toiling and trying to control it, but the control left. And actually, that's when I started feeling a presence of God. Like, I started feeling something inside of me the moment I stopped trying to control it. But I was I hungered for it. But I can't play a part. Like, I can't convince myself to, like, join this church, join my brand. I just am not that way. I'm somewhat antisocial. Like, but I had a deep hunger for truth, or at least to make sense of this weird world that we're in. Yeah. This world, I'll tell you what, this world has not ever made sense. It feels like, but I was in the world for a long time, but the last few years, I would say like the last maybe 2 to 3 years, I started feeling like I was an alien. And the best way that I could express it to some people, I still had a secular mindset, right? But I would try to express it to people, and the only way I could say it was, I feel like my soul's not from here and it wants to go home. I was just seeing like this world feels so upside down because I was being convicted of things. I was being convicted. Sin was something that I was like, I don't even know if I want to call it sin. That sounds like too religious. I was like, as a secular person, being like, that is absolutely a sin. So you combine like the attacks that I had with the principalities that I knew what that was. I was awake. I knew what it was. The file folder, I'm going through it, and I just kept thinking like, there is absolutely good and evil. There has to be heaven and hell. And I feel like the reason I don't feel at home here in this world is because I feel like for some people, this is as close to heaven as they're ever going to get. And they love it here. And for some people, this is as close to hell as they're ever going to get. And they hate it here.
Wow.
And I was feeling that. But I was like, again, completely secular. Yeah. And it all kind of came to a head one night. When I was in that relationship that I knew that needed to end, I would like see his eyes change, and I knew that I was looking at like a demonic entity. Like, and I had seen this before in people. But he would have very Jekyll and Hyde tendencies, and I would be like driving home on a number of occasions, just at the wheel, in tears. And I'd be like, why? Like, I'm trying to be a good person. Like, I'm trying to do everything right. Like, I have so much love, and it's selfless love. Like, why is this happening to me? And I kept hearing this like little voice say, because you're supposed to be in a relationship with God. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And like, I really just want this guy, and da da da. Fast forward, went no contact with him. Fast forward, January 29th of 2023, just over a year ago. This is probably at the saturation point of feeling like I do not belong in this world. Like, this place is whack. I want to share some of like my philosophies or what I'm experiencing, and I'm getting nothing but like pushback. People aren't getting me. I didn't have language for what I was experiencing inside. And the world is much of the world is far more secular than I was. I would say I noticed how secular it really was when I was trying to express things that were more eternal with no language and getting like pushback. And I felt like I am so alone in this world, but this does not make any sense to me. Like, this place is so evil that I feel like there is like evil all around me, which I can only deduce that there is a God who like, I felt like there's a story here. And I just remember being so heartbroken about that relationship and feeling like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm trying to solve all these things on my own. And I thought, like, remember those few times in your life that you actually like prayed to God and like you got breakthrough, like He showed up? Maybe just get out of your head. And I like set everything down. I'm in my bed, closed Instagram, and I just said, okay, God, I really need you. I need peace. I need healing my heart. I need you to make sense of everything that this world is becoming, because I feel like a stranger in it. I really need you. I really need you. And then I just went back to what I was doing. Logged on Instagram, just, another evening of doom scrolling. But the context of most of my healing was in relation to that really toxic relationship that had ended. I open Instagram. Mind you, my algorithm does not have anything biblical on it. I had never seen anything Jesus related on my Instagram page. I open Instagram, and the first thing that shows up is a pastor on stage saying, do you wonder why you have so much love to give, and you're so brokenhearted, and you're weary, and you've been betrayed and abandoned, and you just don't understand why this is happening to you? It's because Jesus wants you to fall in love with Him first. And I was shaken to my core, because it was literally the thing that would like, that voice I kept hearing. And I like closed Instagram, and I sat there for a second. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then I, for a second, said, wait a minute, but it could just be God though. Like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be Jesus though, does it? And then I heard that loud thought. It's not an audible voice, but it's that really loud thought that I can almost hear and read at the same time. And it said, enough, no more. You've searched long enough. This is it. And I surrendered, just my spirit surrendered to it. And I actually, in that moment, experienced what most people experience in my situation, this overwhelming love and peace, something that I can hardly put language to. And I knew in that moment that my entire life had just changed, and that there was no going back. And this is the craziest thing. You know how they say when you die, your life flashes before your eyes like a movie in almost a split second? That happened to me. My entire life, like a movie, flashed before my eyes. And I saw myself at every stage, and all of the like pain, the chapters, the reason that I didn't get Islam, the reason it didn't feel right, the anger I had, the resentment I had for God for not choosing me, all of my toiling, all of the like book reading and learning and just trying to uncover truth. I saw the pain, the heartbreak. I saw every step of the way converge. And I saw my life in a movie in a split second, and I knew it had all converged to this moment. And it was the craziest thing. I experienced what I had only heard people talk about, that I was always skeptical about. But yeah, I knew in that moment that my whole life was about to change. And it really has.
Man, it reminds me of that verse. I mean, it reminds me of being born again.
Truly.
But, right. Truly born again. But that verse that says, man, you've died and your life has been raised with Christ, right? Like, your life flashes before your eyes. That's such a cool story.
It really was like I died.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, like, it was the day that I died. New Age will call it ego death. And I was trying to die to myself already for a long time. Again, partial truths, right? There's something about that life flashing before my eyes, like a movie, that I've really said that, like, it was the day I died, but I was born again. I finally get what it means to be born again.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. And it's such a different story than I experienced, right?
Yeah.
Raised this way.
Yes.
I'm often like envious, like, man, I want a really cool story like that, right? Because I was
No, I like look at your testimony. I'm like, oh wow, like he was raised up with it, but I get why you take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know, or the rebellion against it.
Yeah.
But that God like snatched you right
He
back.
did. Kind of a similar thing. I never stopped believing. Knew I was a Christian, but yeah, driven to the bottom and came back. Yeah, and really the time I was coming back was when I was on fire. Like when I would have met you, I was just then like, man, had no plans of being leadership in church, anything. No plans of being a pastor, not on staff, not doing anything at the church.
You're kidding.
No, I mean, this was all very organic.
I love that.
I was at Divvido, set for life.
Yeah.
Vested interest, first employee, like.
I just didn't know if you were like, I do that, I'm this, and this is my day job, but I pastor on weekends. No?
No, I had an encounter with God at work and said, I am disgusted with myself. Like, all I care about is money. I'm watching the way that we treat people in a pursuit of money and in a pursuit of getting acquired. And like, I was so grossed out.
Yeah.
And Christ was calling me to something bigger. And I literally, one day, everyone shocked, said, I'm out. Lost all my vested interests, lost a big salary. Well, I mean, I was, 3 years later, it sold for $350 million.
Yeah.
I walked away from all of it. And I came and said, you know what? I just started pursuing God. So it's funny. I wouldn't call it my born again experience, but a similar, like brought to my knees, called to something more, just couldn't take it anymore.
That's exactly it. It's like, we were being molded all along, but I think that I had to experience that I have free will, but I am not the ultimate sovereignty. I am not the ultimate authority. And I was dying to, like I said, ego death. I was trying to die to myself in pursuit of higher consciousness or whatever. But when I look back, it wasn't my doing. Like, God was convicting me. God was molding me all along the way. And at the precise moment, when he knew I was ready, he revealed himself to me. And that's like why I tell people, like, he is waiting at the door. You just have to knock. But, he'll know when you're not ready. And if he's waiting, it's not because he's not there. It's because he's working on you. There's more that you need to shed, or there's more that you need to reconcile before he knows that you're ready to go to the next level. But everything that was taken, everything in my life got taken from me all at once, and I almost didn't fight it. I almost knew deep down, I'm supposed to surrender to this. So it's like I had enough faith, but when I had hit full rock bottom was when I just said like the most whack little prayer. Like, I don't even know how to pray.
Yeah, no, it's not whack. It's genuine. I love it.
And he was there.
Yeah. So after that, because remember when you messaged me?
Yeah.
And you're like, I need to talk.
I'm on fire, dude.
Yeah, like I need to talk. So when would that have been? Because that happened in January. By the way.
Yeah.
That was my birthday.
January 29th? Oh my gosh.
Right? How crazy is that? You said that. I was like, oh, really?
Happy birthday to us.
You were born again and I was born.
Yes. That's amazing. Wow. Oh.
So how close to that did you message me? Do you remember?
I think I messaged you in like March, maybe.
Okay, so a few months later.
Yeah, like maybe it's like end of January.
And you had been like reading the word at that point, kind of digging in a little bit.
Oh yeah. No, so like if anybody, like this is just kind of funny. Like I'm trying to think, I have a vision in my head of I have a visual in my head of who I am. I don't know if it's like Howard Hughes when he like went off the rails and like he was like in a studio, like hadn't showered in like 5 weeks and had like, this is so bad, like jars of urine. Like he was completely deranged. But like sometimes I feel like I have like these episodes where I am like so deep and I'm like so laser focused on something. And so after that night with that encounter, I like got out of my bed and I had like moved, and so I have a bunch of stuff in boxes, and I was like, I know I've got a Bible somewhere. I've been gifted like a couple in my life. I like tore my garage apart, again, fully deranged, like very mad scientist, like unhinged, and finally found a King James version of the Bible, and I cracked it open, and I didn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I think I began in Genesis, maybe, or no. I can't remember if I began in the Gospels.
I know that you had talked about reading the Gospels when you and I got together.
Yeah, I think I may have like started in the Gospels, like read maybe I think I read Matthew. Yeah. And I was like, oh, maybe I should read it from the beginning, and I jumped to Genesis. Long story short, I ended up reading for 14 hours. 14 hours straight. I was up all night. Oh. It was like I had taken.
Listen, some people may listen to you and be like, yeah, right. I know being wired that way.
Yes.
When we get on something, it's like you can't peel us away from it.
No, like I've always like it's like ADHD. I've always been that way. I would be like up all night in high school, like Wikipedia with 15 tabs open. It started looking for like a French recipe, and now I'm like studying like Maoism in China. You know, that's just who I am. So excuse me. So I read for 14 hours straight, and I was like on fire. And here's the thing. I like to amass knowledge. Yep. All I want is, like Solomon, all I wanted was to be wise. Like, that's me. Yep. All I want is absolute, something that is absolute, everlasting, universal truth. It's all I've ever wanted. I want to know. Somehow, it's control, of course. Somehow that makes me feel safe. When I cracked open that Bible, and I think I read Matthew first. My mind was blown. Every line. Had I picked up a Bible, which I'm sure I had like tried, been like, okay, you know, had I picked that Bible up 3 weeks before, 3 months, 6 months before that, it would have been words on a page. Had it been even 2 years before that, I probably would have been looking for evidence to disprove it. You know, you know, like if I had read it 5 years ago, I would have been angered by it. When I read that Bible, when I binge read for 14 hours straight, didn't brush my teeth, didn't shower, it was like that feeling I felt when Jesus revealed himself to me. That feeling just kept coming over me over again and again and again. It was absolute truth. Those words came alive. And I wasn't trying to believe. I wasn't thinking I should believe. I was on fire because it was like eureka. Eureka.
I know that feeling.
It wasn't words on a page. It was fully alive, and I mean, even to this day, anytime I crack it open and read scripture, I am blown away. Yeah. Blown away by what I'm reading.
It's funny because, again, my experience was similar, but I was already a believer, and I had gotten really into apologetics. Really into apologetics.
Yes.
I don't know if you know who Ravi Zacharias is.
I don't think I do. I need to look him up.
Yeah. Well, maybe not now. Got involved in a scandal. But
okay.
The guy was absolutely played a huge part in me being on fire for God again. And I remember watching a video of him talking about the 12 disciples and how all of them died. And how this wasn't just like an idea, but we have actual outside sources, extra biblical sources,
yes,
documenting
yes,
that, hey, and here's how my brain works, because I'm like, I want to know this is true. I don't want to just believe something my family told me.
Yep.
But these guys were crucified upside down, heads chopped off,
skinned alive,
burned alive, like the craziest, because they believed it and said they saw a guy raised from the dead, so much so. And I remember sitting there weeping.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, this is real.
Yep.
And now a faith that I'd always believed became really alive to me. And I mean, I was so emotional, distraught. Like, it wrecked me. So I relate to your experience.
And what you just said, I relate to that too. That, like, when I read the full New Testament, 'cause I read it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of self-control when I was reading. I couldn't stop. I could not put it down.
Yeah.
I was bawling my eyes out the whole time. Yeah. And to this day, I usually cry when I read, because when I think about who Jesus was and who he is, it's almost unfathomable, the level of love. And when I think about, I've had a lot of pain, in my life. Many of us have, and I've known betrayal. I can't imagine the betrayal he experienced. I've known loss. I can't imagine his loss. It was like to know that somebody has experienced everything that I will ever go through and endure. He experienced it to the utmost degree. And he did that. Like, he died a more horrific death than any of us will ever know. So that I could find freedom, and so that the world could find freedom from all of the lies and the sin, so that we could collectively be better, because the world is a hellscape because of sin, because of collective sin. That's my belief. And I don't know that I'm strong enough to lay my life down like that for a friend. But I can tell you what, I would lay down my life for him. I would die for him. I would be killed, and I would never denounce him. I can tell you that much. But
gosh, it's powerful to hear you say, like, the name that you were so scared to accept is now a name you just said that you're willing to die for.
I think about, of course, like, I just, like, laugh at myself. I mean, anybody that knows me knows this. Yeah. I'm like, I used to call my sister, like, years ago, like, as an agnostic or whatever, hey, I got questions. I would say, what does the book of Revelation say? What does the book of Revelation say? And she, about this, because I would just, like, notice things in the world that looked so insane that I'm like, this looks biblical to me. I'm going to phone a friend. And but where was I going with that? I am so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. No, you've had enough emotion going on that I don't blame you if you lose your train of thought. But what I was saying was just crazy that you're willing to lay your life down for a name that you were scared to accept. You want to accept God, but not Jesus.
Anything but Jesus, right? That's what we all do.
Right, but now that name to you, I mean, gosh, it's the most beautiful name.
Yeah, and I'm still struggling, like, to figure out how I can, like, do what I think I'm here to do, which is to help bring others to him, because I feel so blessed that I was given a gift. But yeah, there is power in that name. And I know. Oh, sorry. The Revelations.
You're fine.
I am so crazy.
You're fine.
The tribulation.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if I'm around for that, guys?
You're like, this is not me.
I'm like, at first, I've always said, like, I'm not meant for a zombie apocalypse. I would be like, I would volunteer myself as tribute first, because I'm like, I don't want to endure any of that.
Yeah.
But like, I think about it, like what the reality is. I've read Revelations probably more than any other book in the Bible, sadly. But yeah, I mean, without a question, I would never denounce him.
Right.
And if that means, like,
I just think that's so beautiful, given the context that you were raised in.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you seem to have such a grasp for the love of the Father from a girl that didn't have a father. And man, like, that is a story. And when you ask the question, I'm still wrestling with that. I don't know how to use this gift. You're going to definitely do a work for him, because you are such a unique person to come to Christ, because all the odds were against you. Another religion, no dad.
Yeah.
Everything stacked against you, and you still did.
And I honestly, sometimes it's like, I can't even fully grasp the concept of, like, some of us are just chosen, some aren't. It's so hard for me to grasp, because that's something I don't have to know. I don't need a final answer on that one, but all I know is, like, it is a free gift, and I believe that he will give it out to anybody that wants it.
Anyone that calls on my name.
Yeah, because I know there's, like, some beliefs out there that think, like, we're predisposed. Of course, like, he's all knowing. He knows how this is going to turn out. But to think that, like, he makes really good people for the sake of, like, putting them in hell, I don't personally believe that. I can only validate this a lot through the Old Testament, which is that he would use people's wickedness to ultimately, like, deliver others. Yeah. So I don't presume to have all answers.
Yeah, the mystery of divine determinism is one that we've been wrestling with for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
But what's important to know, and this is what I always tell my people, what's important to know is that the grace was a gift.
It was a gift.
That he sought you out. That you, outside of him softening you, would have never chosen him had he not come after you. Right? Those are what's important. How that all fleshes out is not really our job to figure out,
And I think so many people struggle with, like, control, or, like, they're very, very plugged into this world, and it's not really possible at this time for them to think from an eternal lens. How many years I just thought, like, it's just not in the cards for me, because I didn't have the full picture. And now when I look back, I see the full picture of what led me to here, and I still don't even have the full picture of my life. But that is, I think, where how my faith really shows up is being able to look at that past and say, I thought I had all the answers, it never made sense, like, and then to be able to see the movie reel of my life and how every piece was being perfectly and uniquely assembled for me, and that anything else that I'm ever going to go through, I'll always know that it's for a reason. And I don't have the understanding yet, and maybe I never will. I actually have faith that it probably will make sense someday. He's always, looking back, he's always been there. I didn't know it, but he's always been there, either rescuing me, protecting me, making me learn from a mistake. He really just wants his people to not live in bondage. And any avenue that's not in alignment with what he has already told us he wants for us, it will lead to bondage.
Amen. Yeah. Well, that's an amazing story.
Thanks for letting me share.
No, and I'm so pumped that you said yes to doing this. I know this is probably a little bit nerve-wracking, but...
No, in fact, I've been wanting to figure out ways to, like, share my testimony more, because it's the most important thing that's ever happened to me. But, I know how the world is, and I know that it's awkward to talk about at a dinner party. People don't want to be witnessed to, and And I don't even know that I know how to do that. But to have a platform and in a safe environment with you, who I look up to and respect and revere, you've just
thank you.
made it so easy. And I'm blessed to have you and know you, because people like you are better for my worldview.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm blessed to know you. I'm so pumped you did this, and I think this is going to be a big blessing to a lot of people. So
I hope so. I really hope so. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And for the opportunity.
All right, Rock Church, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys soon.